Peter Parker, our favorite Spider-Man. This guy is one of the most relatable superheroes ever. He just manages to keep audiences coming back for backstory after backstory. I mean, what is this? The third time that we've had to be introduced to Aunt May and the gang? Granted, the newest outing seems to be more exciting, and who are we kidding? We love the Spider-Man backstory, but there are some things that even the most hardcore of movie-going fans might not have known. Here are 10 secrets that Spider-Man is hiding about his superpowers. Love everything superhero related? Hit that subscribe button for more supercharged content. Monster appetite. Somewhere between the comic and the screen, some of the character gets left behind. Sometimes it's superpowers, abilities, story arcs, or the negative effects of superpowers. Spider-Man is no different to this, and quite a lot of his character was left out of the movies portraying the character. This is not surprising, because filmmakers have almost 57 years worth of content to sift through since Spider-Man first appeared in the early 60s. So it is safe to say that a lot of his character doesn't make it onto the big screen. And one of Spidey's hardest secrets to keep is the fact that he needs a massive amount of protein to function. Some scientists predict that he would need about 900 eggs in the morning just to swing around New York with that organic webbing of his. This would cost an astonishing amount of money, and considering the fact that Aunt May is only a nurse, it would mean that Spidey must have a hard time trying to keep up with the demands of his growling stomach. Thankfully, his superhero buddies come to his aid and sometimes help to feed him. Well, that and the fact that Peter Parker is one of the smartest characters in the Marvel Universe, so he actually comes up with a few nifty ideas to keep his stomach full. Oh, didn't know that? That must be some of the other content that filmmakers didn't think worthy to mention. Spidey's mask. If you have to ask why Spider-Man wears a mask, I might just have to stab you. Seriously? You have not one, but 3 movie backstories explaining in excruciatingly graphic detail why Spider-Man wears that pretty impractical mask. But since I have such little faith in humanity, I'll explain it one last time. Peter Parker wears the mask to keep his identity hidden. Finished. But as the aforementioned 3 movie backstories happen to forget, is that the mask helps Spider-Man in other ways as well. The mask protects his visibility during difficult fighting conditions such as dust storms. Dust storms in New York? One of Spider-Man's greatest enemies is Sandman, so that is completely practical. The one-way mirror lenses also protect his eyes from the glare of those ridiculously high skyscrapers he's always jumping off of. Aside from all of that, the mask muffles his voice, just not in the more dramatic way like Batman's does, but just enough for Peter's voice not to come through. This is pretty useful considering he spends a lot of time with civilians who know Peter. But the one thing that the movie did get right is the fact that the main reason why Peter wears the mask is to protect those closest to him. Although, considering the fact that Gwen Stacy died even though he never actually revealed his true identity, makes me wonder if this is more of a plot device than a legitimate concern. Useful utility belt. But wait, isn't Batman the one with the utility belts? Yes, but he belongs to DC, so this one is completely okay. Spider-Man has a utility belt, and considering how skin-tight his costume is, it makes total sense. The utility belt holds a number of useful tech ranging from extra web canisters and his trusty camera. That and makes him look super cool. See what I did there? In terms of superpowers, it doesn't do much, and he would probably be just fine without it. It does make his life a little easier in terms of practicality. There are even a few additions from Iron Man, and the utility belt has a few helpful gadgets that help him as he swings about New York. You can think of it as his ultra-modern man purse. Except, this man purse has an incredibly advanced spider signal and even a flying spider, courtesy of Tony Stark himself. It becomes even better when you begin to realize that Peter designed most of his equipment himself. Yup, that's right, our Spidey is quite the inventor and engineer, and if his powers ever fail him, he has a bright future in literally anything else. Rest in peace, Spidey. Spoiler alert! Spider-Man dies. A few times. I mean, if you've been on the scene for as long as he has, then there are bound to be a few murders here and there. I mean, Supernatural has only been around for 13 years, and look how many times they've tried to kill off their main characters. This, as common logic dictates, is generally not a good marketing strategy, or a basic storytelling one at that. But thank goodness for that all-powerful resurrection ex machina. Okay, can we just agree to find whoever made killing main characters and making us cry real tears, then resurrecting them a few episodes later and get rid of them? But no resurrection. I mean, Jon Snow, both the Winchesters. Am I missing any names? Let me know in the comments section below. Frankly, I'm getting a little sick of it. Anyways, so Spider-Man is actually one of the most frequently resurrected characters in the comics, with him dying from everything from chemical spills to car crashes. Once he met Death and convinced her to send him back. Once he is revived because the Green Goblin killed someone, and once Iron Man managed to bring him back. It's a lot to take in, I know, but just wait until you hear how many times he and MJ break up, then get back together again. The kill switch. Before Civil War, Tony Stark created a suit for Spidey. I know, we already see this in Captain America Civil War, but you don't get to see the actual suit from the comics. Iron Man created a red and gold spider suit, with the same technology as Iron Man's suits, and with many of the same features. He even had 3 extra arms that weren't great for fighting, but served other purposes. So why didn't Spidey keep his Ultra Deluxe upgrade? Well, if you haven't already guessed it, Iron Man is a bit of a controlling, egotistical jerk. At least he owns it. Right? Spidey became a bit alarmed when he realized that Tony Stark had not, in fact, shown him all the hidden features of the suit. He was correct when he tried to defect to Captain America's side during Civil War, but Tony activated an override switch, changing the command center from Spidey's suit to his own. Gasp! Remember how I said that Spider-Man is one of the smartest people in the Marvel Comics universe? Well, he already found the override switch long before Tony activated it, and he installed an override switch on the override switch. With friends like these, who needs enemies, am I right? It was also disclosed at another time that the suit allowed Tony some insights into Spider-Man's Spidey senses. So it is understandable why Peter gave the suit back and never accepted one from Tony again. The ones closest to him. One of Spider-Man's most useful superpowers is his Spidey sense. This is the internal alarm that warns Peter of any oncoming danger that might mean him harm. Now, that is pretty useful, isn't it? It manifests itself in a tingling feeling at the base of his skull, which increases the closer he gets to said danger. It also allows him to dodge attacks and compete with those who have more skill and experience than he does. The greatest weakness to this unique power is Spidey's own tendency to ignore it. Sometimes he thinks it is acting up, all the while being unaware of the danger surrounding himself. I'm telling you, if I was his Spidey sense, I would have left a long time ago. Hey, maybe that's why it isn't portrayed on the silver screen, because it's tired of Spidey taking it for granted. You go, Spidey sense. Stand up for yourself. You're a strong, independent superpower that don't need no man. It also doesn't work when he is around those whom he trusts, such as Aunt May and MJ, who for some reason I don't trust. Who else thinks MJ is incredibly shady? It is also the reason why Venom is his arch nemesis. Since Venom is a symbiote that acquired all the knowledge of the spider sense, it has adapted and learned to fight it. Introducing Man Spider! I think one of the biggest reliefs I have about Peter Parker is that he didn't transform into a literal spider when he was bitten by the radioactive spider, which was great until an issue called Marvel Fanfare Volume 1. In this comic, Peter literally became a giant man spider. This was totally lame because it meant that Spidey was trapped inside a literal monstrous Spidey and unable to stop himself from wreaking terrible chaos. I mean, it's cool and all, but hasn't that horse been beaten to death in the Incredible Hulk storylines? I'm as big a monster fan as the next girl, but sometimes we want a snarky hero who faces a bigger challenge than becoming a monster. Eventually, this monstrous form made it into the 1994 Spider-Man animated series, and was actually a huge part of the Neogenic Nightmare arc. I understand the need to do something like that when you have a character that has the potential to turn into a terrifying evil man spider, but I still hope it never makes it into the silver screen adaptations. I mean, there's way more interesting source material on Venom, and I think we deserve to be compensated for Tobey Maguire's less than satisfying performance back in the early 2000s. If they make a giant man spider movie, I'm out! Chameleon. In Tobey Maguire's version of Spider-Man, he tells his best friend Harry Osborn, that some spiders can actually camouflage themselves with their surroundings, like chameleons. Harry then turns to him in disgust and makes his feeling about that clear, which I think is rude and is foreshadowing to the betrayal that Harry will later commit, but I digress. But when you sit down and begin to think about it, that would actually make Spider-Man even cooler. He would be virtually unstoppable with chameleon powers, but it would also be unlike the Spidey we all know and love, the one who stands out from the crowd. But once Miles Morales had a turn as a famous web slinger, he used his ability to the fullest extent. He's able to blend into his surroundings completely, essentially turning invisible. He's able to outmaneuver enemies who outmatch him and use his powers to a greater extent. This is a brilliant power to add to his arsenal, but we have to admit that it makes him a bit too powerful. We love Spider-Man because he is so normal, and very often the underdog. Turning him into an all-powerful superhero is frankly kind of boring. It would also mean giving him the same baggage as the all-powerful superheroes like Superman and Captain America. We like him as is, right? Vibrant and always outmatched, but rising above it. Lethal wit. They say that brains will always win over brawn, and Spider-Man proves that every time. Sure, his wit and humor are what makes him Spider-Man, but it separates him from the world-weary superheroes we all have grown accustomed to, even though we haven't seen it much on the silver screen, although Andrew Garfield did a good job of incorporating Peter's legendary sense of humor. He goes through just as much as every other superhero, but he always manages to stay bright and innocent. But his wit is more than a charming personality trait. It is also one of the most important superpowers. His wit has worn down more enemies than his super strength or webbing ever did. He seems to always know which buttons to push and how to get a reaction out of someone, making them go mad. Not only is this highly entertaining, but it also teaches us that our brains are our most important assets. He uses his wit in fights with menacing supervillains and petty street criminals. He goes in straight for the insecurities and nails a hilarious one-liner every time. Some villains have even straight up refused to fight him because of it. Come to think of it, it is actually a good thing he has superpowers, otherwise he would just get beat up a lot. Spidey's love life. I think the most surprising thing about Spider-Man is the amount of love interests he's had. And I'm talking some serious amount of love interests here. If you thought it was a never-ending struggle between MJ and Gwen Stacy, then you are in for one massive surprise. Spider-Man has gotten together with the likes of Rogue and Kitty Pryde, but sometimes he falls for the bad girls. He was involved with Emma Frost, the former employee of Magneto, and several other anti-heroines. It seems that he just manages to sweep the girls off their feet, but he always goes back to MJ. You might think that MJ might be his one true love, but Peter has admitted that Gwen Stacy was his first true love. The one, if you will. Unfortunately, she's killed when the Green Goblin throws her off of the Brooklyn Bridge. This is not what kills her, it's when Spidey tries to save her with his web shooter, but it's too late, and the force of the fall and being yanked up by the web shooter snaps her neck. Her death hunted him from there on out. It's later revealed that Gwen Stacy, from another universe and with spider powers herself, makes it into the 616 universe. I hope he gets another chance, because that is one love story that ended way too quickly. And that's our list! We know we couldn't get to everything, but there is a lot of content to go through, so let us know about your favorite Spidey secret, or even about the one that surprised you the most. And don't forget to prove your love for Spider-Man by hitting that subscribe button. Bye-bye!